ABC 10 News at 11 starts now.
We are just hours away until the final votes are cast for the next president of the United States. The long and bitter campaign battle for President Trump and former Vice President Biden now drawing to a close. Good evening. I'm Steve Atkinson.
And I'm Kimberly Hunt. ABC's Andrew Dymburt is in Washington with the dueling last-minute campaign strategies.
Down in the polls, but boosted by confidence, President Trump is blitzing battleground states in the waning embers of a fiery re-election bid.
This does not look like a second-place finish.
On the eve of the election, Trump swinging through North Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin, and the electoral crown jewel of Pennsylvania, all states he won in 2016. Former Vice President Joe Biden holds a slim but steady lead in Pennsylvania polls, his campaign blanketing the swing state in a sprint to the finish line.
We're going to win Pennsylvania, and we're going to show the world what America stands for.
We're all here. And this is Biden country, isn't it?
Biden is also hoping to hold those other blue wall Democratic states that collapsed in 2016, where polling shows his ticket is ahead. For Trump, the battle to win Florida presents a possible path to victory for a second term.
I don't know if you know what's happening, but they're very worried, the Democrats, about Florida. They're very concerned.
And as early and mail-in voting shatter records in this election, Trump is doubling down with his message to supporters on his unfounded accusations that the election is being stolen from him.
Especially when you know what goes on in Philadelphia, and it's been going on for years. So, Governor, open up your state, and please don't cheat, Governor. Please don't cheat.
The latest 538 forecast has the president with a 10% chance of beating Biden, his campaign banking on a massive election day turnout, while Biden is turning to suburban voters to make inroads in his efforts to secure the nation's highest office.
Tomorrow we have an opportunity to put an end to a presidency that's divided this nation.
Some 100 million Americans have already cast their ballots, and in some crucial battleground states, the ones that could ultimately decide this election, it could take days to tally up all the votes and certify the election results. But in other battleground states like Florida and Arizona, we could get those results much sooner, perhaps on election night. Andrew Dymburt, ABC News, Washington.
Once those election results start to come in, some of these races could end up in the courts. Some are already challenging the way that voting has been modified because of the COVID-19 pandemic. As our ABC 10 News reporter Laura Acevedo shows us, any legal battles all depend on how close the results are tomorrow.
Whatever happens tomorrow in local, state, or nationwide races, experts say we can expect to see some legal challenges, but say it's too early to know tonight. In an election season that has been tense, tight races could lead to legal battles that end up in the courts.
So there are all sorts of possibilities, and very hard to really game it out beforehand.
Eugene Volokh is a constitutional law professor at UCLA. Volokh explains that if the presidential race is a landslide, the likelihood of legal challenges are close to none. But if it's a tight race,
if it's close in the Electoral College, and if there are enough close states that might make the difference, then we could see a lot of litigation.
He says recounts are possible if a state is just too close to call. Other challenges could be technical.
What if there's some controversy about whether electronic voting machines may have been compromised in a certain way or may have failed in certain ways? One not uncommon form of litigation on election night has to do with whether there are technical glitches that should require polls to stay open late.
Across the country, already legal battles. In Houston Monday, a federal judge refusing to invalidate nearly 127,000 drive-through mail-in ballots after a lawsuit filed by a group of Republicans. In Nevada, a judge rejecting another GOP lawsuit aiming to stop early voting over signature matching software and observers when votes are being counted. If there is the need for legal action, either local or federal, Volokh says it'd likely be resolved in a matter of weeks.
Election-related litigation, it is pretty clear to courts that they'd better decide this pretty quickly.
Laura Acevedo, ABC 10 News.
A Northern California judge said Governor Gavin Newsom overstepped his authority when directing that all registered voters in California receive mail-in ballots this election. She preliminarily ordered the governor to stop issuing directives related to the pandemic that may interfere with state law. The lawsuit stemmed from an executive order that was issued before the state legislature passed a similar law related to mail-in ballots. The judge's decision will become final in 10 days if Governor Newsom's lawyers don't challenge it.
3 days of early in-person voting wrapped up earlier today. For the first time, the county opened 235 super polling locations on Saturday. Normally, there are about 1,600 small precincts open only on Election Day. San Diego State is one of them. The size makes it easier for social distancing. Registrar of Voters Michael Vu estimates more than 1 million people have already turned in their ballots. That's roughly half of the county's registered voters. He says this year the early returns might represent more than 60% of the votes. In 2018, the early numbers reflected just 33% of the vote.
That's just an amazing number. I've never seen that percentage in that first report because you're really waiting for the polling place results to come in. And the fact is we don't have the mail ballots in our hand.
Now, election workers at the Registrar of Voters are preparing for a long and historic day tomorrow.
One of the most contentious local races this year has been the San Diego mayor's race between Todd Gloria and Barbara Bry. ABC 10 News reporter Jeff Lasky spoke with them today about the surprise endorsement that could make the difference if the race is tight.
Just 1 day to go and one final push to convince voters by Barbara Bry.
We'll be waving signs at a busy intersection near my house.
And Todd Gloria.
We're going to be just pounding the pavement and hitting the phones and hitting the text messages all day long.
The race appears to be close. The most recent ABC 10 News Union Tribune scientific poll about a month ago showed essentially a dead heat. With both candidates being Democrats, it isn't clear how the city's Republicans will vote. This weekend, the Republican who almost made it through the primary weighed in. City Council member Scott Sherman tweeted his support for Gloria. His critique wasn't on policy, it was personal. Sherman tweeted, "I can't in good conscience vote for Barbara Bry. She is inauthentic, inconsistent, and untrustworthy." Gloria told me he's gratified by the endorsement.
We're from different political parties and we disagree on many, many issues. But at the end of the day, he's casting his vote based on character. And what he shared, I think, is something that's really meaningful to me.
But Bry told me she thinks Sherman endorsed her opponent because she's beaten him on key issues and in the primary, also suggesting he has trouble with a strong, independent woman.
I made it to the final two. So for the first time ever in San Diego history, there are two Democrats in the final two. And this probably bruised his male ego a little bit.
Neither candidate is sure what effect Sherman's endorsement will have on the race as they make their last pitch to voters.
I'm the independent Democrat, the one who is not beholden to the special interests who have controlled City Hall for too long.
We're going to win this election next Tuesday, and we're going to restore some civility to politics in San Diego.
Jeff Lasky, ABC 10 News.
Another race that has drawn a lot of bad blood is the 50th congressional race between Darrell Issa and Amar Campa-Najjar. Our ABC 10 News Union Tribune poll last week showed Issa with an 11-point lead. But because Democrats dominated early voting, the early returns tomorrow night could show Campa-Najjar artificially in the lead.
So things are going to look good for Amar Campa-Najjar by 8:05, 8:15. The next set of returns that come in are going to be the ones starting at between 9 and 10:30 that will come in from polling places.
UC San Diego political scientist Thad Kauser says that could be as much as a 10 to 15-point swing to Issa until the rest of the ballots come in. And this seat, which was formerly held by Duncan Hunter, is the last Republican stronghold in the county.
Local law enforcement agencies are also gearing up for the possibility of demonstrations and civil unrest. Although it has no credible knowledge of any planned protests, the San Diego Police Department will open its operations center tomorrow. That's only activated during major events as a hub to filter and disseminate intelligence.
We are not fully stopping the operations center. What we're doing is we're putting it on a monitoring status, if you will, and we feel that that's prudent given the climate that we're in.
Meantime, the sheriff says his department will be adequately staffed. The Highway Patrol is moving officers to 12-hour shifts, and the local FBI has set up an election command post.
With so much uncertainty, businesses in San Diego aren't taking any chances. We found them boarding up late today at the Church of Scientology building on 4th Avenue downtown. We also found the windows and doors boarded up at the downtown Ralph's. Business owners want to avoid a repeat of the damage and looting that happened over the summer following the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis.
ABC 10 News is your source on election night tomorrow night. We will have live wall-to-wall coverage on streaming devices including Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV, and your smartphone. To watch, just download the ABC 10 News app. Go to 10news.com for the latest on all the races that matter to you.
Tomorrow, the people of Puerto Rico will decide whether they want their territory to become a U.S. state. A referendum on the ballot supports making Puerto Rico the 51st U.S. state, but the referendum is non-binding. That means it will still be in the hands of Congress whether Puerto Rico receives statehood. This is the third time this decade the Puerto Ricans have voted on this matter.